Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Green Effect podcast. This is episode number 40, and we've got Peter Cuttini, George Dube, the amazing accountants from BDO. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to finish off our conversation around corporations, and we talk about what happens if you die and you own a corporation. We're going to take about 20 seconds and talk about the new T1 general format. And finally, the main part of the show, we're going to talk about the new process in which real estate agents can now incorporate. What does it mean? Do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? Should you do it? And we're going to go through all sorts of things around taxation and liability. Great episode for everybody, but realtors in particular. Here we go. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
So, I mean, we just finished talking about generic cookie cutter versus specific, but total side note, if the property's in a corp and only the two individuals are the shareholders, how does that get passed on at death?
Well, if we do nothing, it's going to go through a will, presumably.
Okay, so it does come back to their actual estate then.
That's one possibility.
And if this is too much of a big question, just say so.
No, I think it's a great question. The problem is that's kind of the default thought process. And what it's done in most cases is cost us a lot of money. So if we were able to do some planning ahead of time, we may have been able to do something commonly called an estate freeze, where we may have mom and dad, maybe they're in their 50s, for example, and they're saying, okay, it's time to let the next generation start to have some say here. We're going to convert our common shares to special shares, and say that was worth $5 million at the time. So now I've got special shares worth $5 million. The next generation steps in, buys some common shares for $100, say. Now they're going to get future growth of that company. And so, particularly if mom and dad still have votes to those 5 million shares, for example, the kids aren't going to go off and spend money on the Ferraris or anything, but now they're learning the business some more and more, with mom and dad still able to step in. The problem with that is, I like to use the expression, now we're playing God. And what I mean by that is, I'm trying to predict when I'm going to die, how much money I'm going to need for healthcare, vacations. I want to go to Mars. I want to go around the world. I want to do whatever it is I want to do with legacies and donations. I got to figure that all out in theory. Whereas if I have a family trust, I've got so much more flexibility that I can kind of let God do what he's good at, and I can kind of do what I'm good at. And whenever we've tried to play God, we failed miserably, I would suggest. So let's try not to go there where we don't need to. But in theory, we don't need a family trust. But back to your point with respect to that planning, well, we're seeing more and more of our clients set up those family trusts earlier and earlier. So they're already dealing with some of these issues. And then have... Again, the corporation works well, but if we wait until somebody's actually, or typically the second of the spouses to pass away, we've missed an opportunity from a tax perspective. We've probably given away, and again, assuming a little bit of a portfolio, we've probably given away 25% of our estate needlessly. And that's a big number, I would suggest.
That's a big number. Yeah, that's a lot. Oh, man. Yeah, and that's where, again, barring playing God, of course, it's important to plan that stuff out, especially if the kids don't want to take it over, right? This one thing, I'm going to spend like 30 seconds on it just to save me a lot of phone calls. Yes, the T1 generals are changing names and a little bit of format, adding a couple of zeros. I believe they're going to look a titch different, maybe a prettier logo. It's Canada, maybe a marijuana leaf on the front and with the beaver beside it. And but other than that, nothing else really. Quick little change and off we go. Okay, cool. Okay, let's talk about this because I have been getting this question. So again, we're going to timestamp this thing a little bit, but just recently, the allowing real estate agents, realtors, to incorporate has just passed third reading.
Yes.
Which means it's happening soon, most likely, right? Unless the Governor General is having a bad day. So what does this mean? Why? And I'll throw the questions. You guys can, wrap it all up. So why... How much does this cost? Why would I want to do it if I was a realtor? What if if I'm a high volume realtor doing 100 ends a year compared to an average realtor is about 10 to 12 ish, maybe 20 in that range. Why? How much? Advantages? Go.
Here, the average realtor will receive no benefit from having their realty practice through a corporation. This is really geared, and that legislation has more to it than just setting up corporations, but so I'm just referring to the corporate aspect of it. This is really being driven to 10-15% of the realtors, I would suggest, or those realtors that believe in the next 3 to 5 years they're going to be quote unquote successful. And so a lot of realtors, and again, no disrespect, their intention is just to sell a few properties a year. They're not trying to set the world on fire. They want a comfortable living, or they're trying to boost up retirement or some vacation planning, whatever that may be. That's really not the target for, as I said, the legislation. So now we get into that person that's able to save some money in a corporation or start to do investing through a corporation. And maybe we can show them ways of still saving money. And maybe it's not RSP saving, for example, but there's other forms of investing that can be done. As a real rough number, if I'm able to have an extra $10,000 in my corporation beforehand, again, if I was paying 40 up to, in Ontario, 53% tax, I'm just going to round off the numbers, I guess. We'll call that 50% to keep it simple. Well, I could have gotten my corporation, potentially I was paying 12.5% tax. I might be closer to 18% with some other scenarios. Or if I'm really setting the world on fire, maybe I'm at 26.5%. Whichever those numbers I choose to use, though, that was significantly less than my 50-ish% on the provincial side. Federal provincial side. So for those Ontario realtors, it's something now I think they're probably going to want for this year to have a good chunk of the income in their personal hands anyway to run the household, etc. But and I doubt if some of the supporting legislation will be ready until the summer at some point. I stand to be corrected there, but presumably they want everything kind of in order so that when the fall comes around and there's starting to do kind of, if you will, a lot of the realtors will do a good chunk of business in the spring and the fall, for example. So we'd certainly like that last half of the year to be protected through a corporation. And so if they can get their ducks in a row, start talking to Peter and I, our teams, in terms of what does this mean from a bookkeeping perspective? What does this corporation process actually mean for me? How much is it going to cost? What am I going to save? What should I be doing a little bit differently?
All good questions, important questions.
They are. And for the most part, yes, there's going to be some changes, no question. But they're not that significant. And if we're starting to save 25, 30, 40-ish% of my tax dollars, effectively, it's more than that, but 40% now goes to me instead of the government, that's an enormous raise.
Yeah.
And so not something to be taken lightly, I would suggest, but it's also not something where you can just go set up a corporation online and you're magically in business the next day. So what ends up happening is they've sold their practice to a corporation. There's tax implication, legal implications to that.
Okay,
Let's address
this is
those.
important. This is important because I know this is what's going to happen, right? And listen, realtors are busy. That is what they do. They're running around trying to sell houses, run their business like any other owner of a business, I'm assuming, right? But this is what is going to happen, right? So you're saying then if they do that without proper planning, etc., they've sold their business to a corporation. They could have it. There's a tax issue.
Done incorrectly, they may actually trigger a much larger tax bill than they ever dreamed of possible. And as odd as it may sound, that may actually be a good thing. And so we don't have the capacity to go through that today by any means. But again, why it's a value to be sitting down with the advisors to say, yeah, let's do some planning, not just for today, but some medium and long-term planning as well, because there's some huge opportunities that are sitting here for the realtors. And now what are they going to start to do with their newfound savings? How do they involve family members? Should they be investing now in some stocks, mutual funds, real estate, insurance? hula hoop factories. It really doesn't make any difference, but they have more choices. There's going to be changes in terms of how they bring money to their family for making sure ends are being met on the personal side of things. And there's glorious opportunity here. But if they try and ignore it, oh, I'll take care of it later, then later turns into much later, and much later turns into never. Get those discussions going. Peter and I are starting to make appointments with different brokerages and realtor groups now, so we can kind of get in front of people and go through with them. Here's some of the pros and cons of this process. I don't want to pretend it's all rainbows and lollipops, but it's mostly rainbows and lollipops.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
One caveat I will say to all realtors out there, even if you're very successful, if you spend it all on personal stuff, this is never going to help you. You have to have the ability to save money. If you're bringing in $600,000 and you don't have a pot to piss in at the end of the year,
Yeah.
this is going to do you no favors.
And so this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a change in mentality because we have, and not only realtors, but I mean, we have sole proprietors who write everything off and they spend accordingly. Okay. They have the ginormous car payment, ginormous. Okay. Just stuff that they just write off. So yeah, 600,000 and then their net is $10,000. Right. So is that a change in mentality a little bit?
I think it can be radical for some people, as Peter's saying. And I think, again, if they're working with different advisors, not just on the tax and accounting side, but financial planning, et cetera, where, hey, wait a minute, do you really realize, Peter and I were chatting with now a client who makes a lot of money, to make a long story short. And I think he told us, and Peter may correct me here, he had like 12 cars or something like that in the last 3 years. And he knows it's silly.
12 different cars.
Yes.
Okay.
And these were not little Fiats either. So what can we be doing here that might have a little bit more longer term life satisfaction? And I'm not trying to say somebody should, I'm not going to deny them some fun with a sports car. I mean, to each their own, right?
Exactly.
You need 12 of them? And if you've got the money, sure. But let's make sure some of the longer term needs for yourself, family, legacy, et cetera, are taken care of. I think often we can, again, somebody may say, I don't have any money to save, but they're already factoring into their mind, I'm putting X amount of dollars into an RSP, I've got X amount of dollars into insurance, I've got a couple of investment properties, I do this, I do that. Well, maybe we should be relooking at what it is that's important to you. Mm-hmm. And again, Peter and I aren't going to tell somebody you should, or well, in some cases, I guess we would, but we're not trying to dictate how somebody should live their life, but maybe we can offer a couple of points that would really help free up some cash. And now how are we going to redeploy that?
I think there's going to be some very, and I think you guys can attest to this, there's going to be some very upfront conversations on some of these things, because I think anytime there's a significant change like that, if there's got to be a mindset change, you got to be upfront, or not upfront, but you got to be very to the point and just say that, hey, listen, if this is your lifestyle, then maybe we don't go down this road, right? Because of this, and this, or
I've always said this to clients, and I don't get it sometimes. Why would you spend $1 to save 50 cents? Right? Like, to me, that's just bad cash management.
Yep.
It's just bad.
Absolutely.
And I think if you make 600 and come home with 10, you're spending on stuff that you probably didn't need.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, if people are willing to spend a little bit of money to say, wait a minute, I need some help here. Forgetting I may or may not be a spendthrift. And most people, I mean, I hope a lot of the realtors are just seeing, what a huge opportunity. This is awesome. I should be talking to somebody. And yeah, maybe I have to change some things differently. And you certainly were mentioning, Steve, that I don't want to be involved necessarily with keeping the books differently or doing some extra steps. I want to go out and do what I used to be good at, I'm still good at, and I'm going to be good at tomorrow. Let somebody else worry about the smaller things, if you will. Keep me organized. And maybe what I need to do is sit down with George or Peter once a quarter, for example, or twice a year, and go through, well, how am I doing? Am I saving enough? Am I putting money towards tax installments? Am I doing this, that, or the other thing? Just that reality check. And it's not always with the George and Peter. It's going to be, again, with a finance professional. There'll be check-ins in different types of individuals. Maybe it's a business coach as well.
Yeah.
But let's do those check-ins so I don't have a full year before I go and talk to somebody again, but I'm regularly addressing that. And yeah, I'm going to fall back a couple of times. I'm going to do some things that I just want that sports car as an example.
Yep.
And deal with it. And that's fine, but just understand the implications. And if we do, wonderful. Next.
Yeah. One of you said it last time. Or I don't know if you said it on the podcast or it was my personal. I asked a question a few years ago, and the answer was, before you do it, just talk to us first, just to make sure it was right. And I think any sort of major decision like that, you got to sit down with your people in your team and make sure, like, does this make sense or not, right? Spending $1 to save 50 cents. Oh, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Right?
This legislation is going to create a windfall opportunity for a lot of realtors to save really, really significant amounts of money. Let's do it properly.
Yep. Agreed.
And just move on, get a system into place to make it as painless as possible. There will be a little bit of pain, but really, when you start factoring in the tax savings, yes, you're going to have to sign a few pieces of paper more than you used to, but otherwise, done properly, sit down, talk. This is not that challenging.
Yeah. And a lot of realtors do have rental properties, so it'll be neat if you guys, and this is my shameless plug for you guys, because you understand both sides of the real estate side and the self-employed. That's huge, right? So I know you guys would benefit. The clients would benefit from meeting with you guys for sure.
Peter and I guess Peter, we were talking with a group of partners yesterday, and Peter just commented, "Yeah, we've been waiting for this legislation for like 10 years now." And it's been, as you're aware, Steve, I mean, it hit and miss in terms of how far it's gotten to the process. Now we're licking our chops trying to say, what a huge opportunity. Yes, for us, but for our clients in particular, new clients that we're sure we're going to come in, and the spin-offs that'll result from the real estate investing, different opportunities that are going to come up, and then for us to be able to introduce them to people that can help take care of the bookkeeping, help do this, help do that. What a huge opportunity for the industry.
Is there, and if this is not your area of expertise, let me know, what about liability? So if a realtor is held liable for, whether it was on purpose or not, made a bad decision on something or sold a house where they shouldn't have or whatever, do they go after the corp? The realtor is no longer personally on the hook?
I haven't seen the official legislation. It's probably going to be a lot like every other professional body where the court's not going to help you for that.
Really?
If it's negligence, they're still going after you.
Yes. So most lawyers, accountants, doctors, etc., if there's a problem, that corporation, again, not that we're lawyers, but
right.
From a professional standpoint, we don't have, quote unquote, the same protection as if I was operating a consulting business doing whatever it may be, or I was selling widgets or servicing widgets.
Right.
So it's not going to be presumably a tool that a realtor that was acting unethically could hide behind. It's a tool for those that are doing well. And I think a lot of parts of that legislation, as I went through it, are trying to make it more easy for the public, to protecting the public, but also protecting the good realtors, which are the extreme vast majority.
Absolutely.
So that, yeah, now it's better for everybody if we've got the same set of rules and we can move along.
And just reading the tidbits coming out, it looks like fines are going up. So the maximum fine is a lot harder. Yeah, this isn't going to help in terms of that. If you're unscrupulous before and you're unscrupulous now, you're still going to get shafted, and that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be able to hide behind a corporation.
No, you're right. And I think with all the insanity right now around firm offers and multiples and withholding offers till this day or whatever the case may be, realtors, whether they're doing it on purpose or not, sometimes run into a bit of a pickle, right? And it's like, oh crap, didn't mean to do that, or I'm relatively new or whatever. I'm just trying to think, is it now all of a sudden the corporation's problem as opposed to them? But you're saying it's just...
And again, we're not lawyers, so
right, of course.
That, but yeah. I wouldn't be thinking that I'm going to be able to take advantage of something of that nature.
Yeah, fair enough. No, we'll leave it at that. That's, totally understandable. So, anything else on this whole realtor and corporation thing? I think we've covered a lot of things. Most important thing is sit and talk with you guys and Make sure.
Yeah, because admittedly, the final legislation or the accompanying regulations are not out there yet, but start to get things put into place. And admittedly, there's some things we don't know that we need to know before things can be finalized. But again, particularly if this is going to be a transition into something a little bit different for most people, trying to pretend that we're going to magically get it all done. Let's say on September 1st, we have formal permission to go ahead with the government and have all the accompanying legislation ready. There's going to be a flock of realtors coming. We're not getting everybody ready on September 1st. So if we can get a lot of this taken care of between now and September 1st, so that we've already sat down, we've done the planning, we know whether or not it's even appropriate for somebody, start to discuss the systems that are going to be followed. So when September 1st does roll around, now we hit send, if you will, because we've got all the documents ready to go. Maybe have to tweak one or two things. But we've already pre-planned this. We're ready to go. We're ready to save taxes in the fall. And it's not going to be as overwhelming for us because we've got the system into place.
The two things I will say is, one's a shameless plug. At BDO, we're actually doing this as a cross-Ontario effort.
Okay.
We've got significant support from national on this. This is an area that we're going to be focused on. The other thing I would say on this whole legislation is I think the brokers are going to have to embrace it.
Okay.
Because I've talked to a couple of brokers that say, I don't want to do this.
Like they don't want to do it, or
they don't. They think it's
They
going to
don't
be
want the legislation.
They don't want the legislation. They think it's going to be a pain, whatever the case may be. I mean, maybe they just don't like change.
right.
But if you're a broker record and you've got a good number of agents who are doing well, and you don't let them do this, they're going to walk.
Absolutely.
They'll walk tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
That's crazy. But why does a broker care? Like, why would an owner broker care if their agents are incorporated, other than maybe different accounting? I mean, is there something I'm missing?
it has no. Actually, I shouldn't say that. The only thing I heard, and I could be dead wrong, and this was on the sub brokerage, but it takes the stats out of their brokerage.
Oh.
I don't know if this
okay.
will, but
Yeah.
supposedly, if you had set up a sub brokerage, it took the stats out of their brokerage.
Okay.
But that should not be the reason to.
No, because you still see team numbers up there. You just won't know the individuals within the team.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, all brokers have teams within their offices,
Yeah,
right?
but I think so. It would report to one brokerage and not their. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, another whoever the check gets payable to really is, you know.
And I've had a couple of clients just say, to reemphasize Peter's point, is they don't like change.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it may not be significant change. And again, not that this is the only industry that does this, but they tend to be very, very, very good at selling real estate and making deals happen, etc. They don't want all the side issues. So sometimes we just need to expand that slightly to say, I know it's a little bit different, but you can also hire that out. You can take care of it. And maybe, yes, it's going to be a little bit more work on your part, but now let's contrast that with all the benefits that are coming your way.
Huge.
And if there are brokers listening to this, we'd be more than happy to come out to the brokerage and talk to all your agents on this.
Yeah, and listen, I give full support on that one. I think it's so important, so important. You know, yeah. You know what? The brokers who support it, you know what? They're going to have some pretty happy realtors, right? I really think it is that simple.
Yes.
So, okay, we're going to end it there because I think we've gone over some great things. A big part of it was definitely the realtor side of it, and you know. Listen, if I can take away one more thing and you know, remind everybody, just plan anything. It doesn't matter. Plan. Do not just open up the corp on September 1st and now you're incorporated the next day.
That's right.
Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay. So, thank you. Now, how do people reach out to you? Give me some phone numbers, some emails. How do we get a hold of you when they need to plan this stuff out?
So our email addresses are simple. It's our first initial and our last name, so I'm PCUTTINI at BDO.ca.
2 T's?
2 T's.
Okay, because when I was prepping for this, I still have to make sure.
Yeah.
And for myself, it's Dube, D-U-B-E, at BDO.ca. Again.
And our main number at the office is 519-576-5220.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I always love having you guys on because I know you're on top of things. You know what's going on. You've got the experience, which I think counts for something. We're all becoming, guys, we're all becoming old farts.
I was about to say, I think he thinks we've got the gray hairs, and well, we do.
And I got the balding to go with it. I'm just throwing it out there. You've been around a long time when it's all disappearing as well. So, and again, it's you guys have been around a long time, and you guys know what the score is. You know what to do, and I entrust you with my stuff as well. Yeah, I think it's always awesome for people to work with you as much as possible and make sure everything's good to go for them. So, thank you. We'll have you on again for sure.
Thank you,
Awesome.
Steven.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And there it is, Peter and George, the two accountant extraordinaires. Hey, thanks for listening. If you love this podcast, please, 5 stars, amazing feedback would really go a long way. And don't forget to follow me on both Facebook and Twitter with the handles RBC Stephen Green. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.